welcome to another Mr. Beats Bite video, and this one's a little bit different insofar as we're looking at the Sony C20. This is part 2 of recommissioning and overhauling this machine, and hopefully making it a lot more reliable as well going forward. So in this one we're going to be looking at front loading system, just checking that over, replacing these buttons because they're really very intermittent. Power supply, bit of a cleanup as well. Hall effect, clean that up, and the upper drum as well. So that'll be done. And with that, let's crack on. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm doing this in no particular order. It all needs to be done, so I'm doing what I feel like. First thing I'm going to do is do the upper drum. So I've done a dedicated video on this, and indeed, it's not that long ago I did a bit of a demo on an HF100. So yeah, that was quite gummed up. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. So like I said before, you can remove these guides for a bit more space, but I tend not to do it that way. I just take that front bit of plastic off, and that's enough to get the drum off. Of course, this has the later upper drum anyway, which is a bit tougher, but obviously still wears. Let's take this off. Okay, so I have resurfaced it. It's looking much, much better. So put it back together. Let's line up where those screws were before I remove the. There's a hair trying to get in there. So the upper drum is somewhere near where it needs to be. And the tape pressure guides. Super, so that's done. And yeah, I think the next thing I'll look at is the power supply. So I'm going to completely remove the power supply. I'm going to take out the shielding can first. Straight bit of wire there, trying to get in. So just pop this open, and all of the connectors on the power supply are unique, so you don't have to worry about marking them. So there's a 3 and a 2 on this side, white, 4 black, 5 white. I think that's 7 white, 3 red, and they can all just be unplugged without any fear of getting them muddled or having to worry about them getting muddled. So this power supply is really so full of petals. So to get the power supply out, move the cord assembly, power cord assembly, which is easier said than done sometimes. It's going. These can be incredibly tough, but the metal, as you probably just saw, the metal is actually quite forgiving. cord grip. There's two small screws in the corner, so I'll just show you those. Whoop, is that one gone? And then on here, because I have to press so hard. Magic, and all of those screws so far have been the same length, so that's cool. That's the other screw there. So that's that out. So that is now free from this side. So now we have to get these screws out. I don't know why I think these might be different, but these are quite tough. Oh, that one's coming. This poor screwdriver. And then once all those screws are out, you've got two underneath as well, which I nearly forgot about. Let's make sure that power supply doesn't drop. Right, so. And again, they're the same size, so all of the screws are the same size, which is nice. So, this should now lift out, and as you can see, it is one grubby power supply. Yeah, that needs a lot of cleaning up, so I shall go and do that, and then we'll change those caps. So that's a lot cleaner. Still have a few bits just to clean up. I'll clean all the dust off here, but it's certainly a lot better. I've also removed all the silicone grease off there and cleaned up the heatsink, which was actually pretty... I couldn't get it off. I had to actually put it in the washing up to get it clean. And I've also just very lightly used some Scotch-Brite just to get this really, really smooth. So we've got a really good contact area, and I have actually cleaned this as well, just so it's nice and shiny. But get a good contact area on the STR regulator chip. So that should make it run nice and cool. Still quite a bit of dust hanging around in various places, but yeah, we'll sort that out. So there is actually a mica sheet which I've cleaned up as best I could. There's a little bit of damage on it anyway. It's been removed previously, and it had been damaged in that process, so I've been very careful. I've not worried too much about getting every single bit of silicone grease off, just to make sure that I don't damage that. I haven't got another one of these, so have to be careful. Clamp, and it did actually have a different screw in for the heatsink, which is absolutely fine. It's obviously been apart before, and I know that because on this side one capacitor's been changed. Now we'll change this again, but yeah, it's basically the ones you want to change are this one, and the two on this side as well, these two. So yeah, so I'll get and do that, and give it one last little dust through, and put it back together. All done and fitted properly. And just to confirm, the capacitors on this side are 22 microfarad rated at 16 volts. And I think those are 16 volts in there. And then on this side, these are 47 microfarad. I've put 25 volt ones in, but they're rated at 16, so 16 volts is fine. You'll notice as well, and one thing I really like about Sony stuff is not only does it give you the symbols on the back of the polarity, they also put a white dot on the front of the printed circuit board for to designate where the negative should go. So I do like that. You really can't go wrong, he says. But yeah, and getting this apart, because it looks a bit more complex than it actually is, mainly because the wires come out here and you think, well, am I going to pull those wires? But you don't. It's literally just slides up in like so, and then the screws go in there. I'll take them out from there, slide it down, out it comes. I have also changed the fuses. There's 4 fuses, 2 500 milliamp on this side, and then you've got a 2 amp fuse here and a 3.15 amp fuse here, all slow blow. I have found as these machines get older, the fuses, every time you power on a machine or whatever, the fuses get slightly flexed, and over time that flexing will cause a weakness and they'll just break. So they won't blow as such, they'll just break. So what I do on machines, especially for other people, is I will just change all the fuses so we know they're good. And there's nothing worse than getting a machine back and you turn it on and it's dead or something isn't working just because the fuse is just fractured. No other reason. I've actually got a couple of machines that I'll be working on shortly that have had that same issue, but also have other issues. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. But yeah, so going to just give it one final clean and get this back together and move on to the next bits. Just fitting the power regulator, the STR chip back in, and basically I put a thin layer of silicon heatsink compound on the heatsink itself. Then we've got, if I can pick it up, the mic sheet. Goes there. Actually goes that way round. You don't have to put silicone grease on there, it's just I've got some on there. Just smeared some on. Mainly because I was just weighing up how it's all went back together. Managed to get some on. And then on the back of the STR chip itself, just a thin layer of heatsink compound on there. So yeah, then this then comes down here. Line up this section and this section, and that will then put the chip in the right place. You can see there, I mean, that broken bit of mica really doesn't matter. I will just push the mica down a bit more just to make absolutely sure that there's no potential risk of metal-to-metal contact, but yeah, that should be all good to go. Then obviously put the clamp on. There we have it. So you can see there, that red screw there, that isn't the correct screw, but I've reused it because, well, it's a self-tapper and the thread's wrecked if I try and use the original screw, so I'd rather it was clamped properly with the wrong screw. So there we have it, looking a lot tidier, still not 100% dust free, but they're not going to be too over the top, and quite frankly I don't want to disturb it more than I have to. I've also put a cable tie back on. There wasn't one originally, but there would have been from the factory, and see there, it's pretty tidy. I'm happy with that. So get it back in the machine, all back together, bar the shielding bit of metal, and that looks so much better, and hopefully it'll work better as well. Not that it was really that bad before, but those caps, I mean, only one of the two really suspect ones were changed. And obviously these 4.7s is worth doing those as well. 47 microfarad rather ones are worth doing as well. So yeah, all that together. So next thing I think is to do the connectors on the back here. Before we do the sockets on the back, I noticed it's missing a foot, and I actually have a spare one. So to fit these, or remove them even from the mount, they have a centre pin. So you can usually just prise these out with a very small flat blade screwdriver. If you're doing it from the outside, if you're doing it from the inside, it's actually better. And if you can reach, because you can actually push out the pin from the middle. So that's probably the better way to do it. But at a push, you can do it from the outside. It's just a matter of getting those 4 prongs, because if it's an old foot that you're putting in, they're splayed out slightly, and then push that in, and that's it. All good to go. So let's get these sockets done. All the screws are pretty tight in this. Really, the screwdriver isn't up to the job. Now, this has had a bit of a bump, so I'm really glad I'm doing this. It's only slight. It's not bad. I mean, obviously we've tested the machine, so it works completely fine, but yeah, the PCB is actually all right there. This is a bit of a bump there. It's obviously caused it to just slightly crack the board. So to be fair, looking at that, I'm not too worried about that. In fact, I'll probably just leave it because it is just an earth. I mean, I say it's just an earth. It's coming through here. So yeah, it's not ideal. So I probably will just run a wire around just for my peace of mind. It won't make any difference, I'm sure, but you know, I don't want to worry more than I need to about things. So yeah, so I'm going to clean these up as well and get them nice and shiny, and then we'll do some board repairs. So I found out why this got cracked. It isn't from a drop at all, basically, and if that's the right screw, I might have already chucked it. Yeah, this screw, basically the head is quite badly damaged. It doesn't look too bad on camera, but yeah, basically this screw was here. So it's pushed so hard, it's actually cracked the board. So yeah, so that's sort of answered that one. So let's just put a little bit of fresh solder on. So strengthen the audio and the video. Obviously it's a mono set, so there's only one set of audio jacks for in and out. So I've actually changed the way I do these now. You might have seen me in previous videos use offcuts from the legs of components, and now I've got it's multi-strand but quite thick multi-strand cable. So I just use this now, and I find it does a great job, and I can make a handy little handle to reduce the risk of me getting burnt, which seems to be quite a favourite pastime of mine at times, doing stuff like this. So there we go. That's all repaired. You could argue there's tidier ways maybe of doing this, but this is fine. It's reliable. It works well. These are quite thick. It's quite thick copper, so it's not going anywhere. It's not as if it's very flexible at all. So that's all done. So the next thing is I'll just give these a bit of a polish up and get the back bit of metal cleaned up as well, and yeah, crack on from there. All done, all cleaned up, really pleased with that, gone together really nicely. So next job is clean up all that glue off the Hall effect sensor. So yeah, let's do that next. So you've seen me do this several times before now, but anyway, it's always worth just getting this right. Try and do it so you can see this time, because I always have a really big good habit of totally obscuring the process. So I get a good bit of isopropyl in there. So using 99% isopropyl. You see it's starting to break down. In fact, I have actually just sprayed straight on there just to fill it with isopropyl, but I sort of don't like getting too much in there because it can start to damage the enamel on the coils. So I try to minimize the amount that I use now. Invariably doing it this way, you're going to get some, but it's a lot less than if you just flood it with isopropyl. That's actually cleaning up quite nicely. And what you're looking for, it doesn't have to be spotless, but you're really trying to get it as much of the glue out from between the legs as possible. And very gently using a toothbrush to do this. Yeah. So what I'm going to have to do is just pick out. I'm just scraping in between the legs. And it's quite difficult to do with the camera in the way and actually see what I'm doing, but it's all good. What I'll do is I'll get a magnifying glass to it and do a final check before I finally put it back together. I have to say, one of the legs doesn't actually look that wonderful. Ah, that's clean now. Yeah, that's clean. There's a tiny bit of contamination on the plastic still beneath it, but between the legs of the Hall effect itself is clean. There's some still at this end, but it's literally just on the leg. There's actually nothing between the leg and the next leg. Very gently keep on with that. Magic. Now I have to say, I have had only once a Hall effect die shortly after doing this, so I always give the machine a good run anyway. I mean, it needs a good run. But one of the things I'm looking for is if the Hall effect is going to still fail. So yeah, that's cool. The other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here, I'm not going to take the front loading system out, but I am going to grease it with some silicone grease. Okay, yeah, so I've just put a little bit of silicone grease in the front loading system gears, and here I'm not going to strip it down because I don't think it needs that. Yeah, just to give it a little bit more sort of refreshed lubrication. I'm just going to take off some of this excess grease, and I've done the same on this side as well. There's a lot less going on, but yeah, happy with that. So put this back together on this side, and it's time to do the front panel. Right, so next is the front panel and the push buttons for the tape functions and standby. And I'm also going to take these off, which I'll do afterwards. Now, an important thing to bear in mind is this cable tie here. You do need to take this off. Very seldom is it slack enough for you to actually get enough play, because this board needs to slide out this way. So take the 2 screws out, slide it out, put it forward. But this will stop it from doing that. So you really need to remember where this goes, the actual fastening part of the cable clip. And basically it goes this way, pulls round and through, and then the actual locking section of the cable tie needs to land there. Now, if you get this wrong, what will happen is the front flap will actually foul the cable tie, and it won't close properly, or if it does, it'll feel sort of really rough. So if that's the case, you know you've got that wrong. You also have to be careful on your choice of cable tie. This, I believe, is okay. It's a little bit bigger, but it will work. So yeah, so let's cut this. Being careful not to obviously cut the cables. Take that out, and then it's just a matter of getting a little bit of slack here, and it should free up. Now what can happen, there's tape. This is actually adhesive tape up here, and that will stop it from sliding. So let's try that again. There we go. Just a bit caught. So there we have it, board's off. So I suppose the next thing is to remove all these switches, and then we can put some new ones on. All of the switches have been removed, and I replaced them with these. They're the standard 2mm tacked switches. There's just a standard size. I mean, the ones that come out are actually a little bit bigger, but these will, at a stretch, fit quite nicely, and they do the job well. The feel is a bit more positive, so you get like a more positive click, but that's fine, and it works well. The other alternative is actually to take these apart, the original switches apart. And if you just put a bit of heat, pull this up, put a bit of heat around the metal, you can actually quite easily just pull off the metal section. And then you can see there how they work basically. So it's center contact around the edge, and then there's a bit of metal here, just the dome, button dome, and basically just clean underneath that. You can see there's some degradation of that. Give it a clean, put it back together, a little bit of heat again just to stick down the metal cover. Just gently touch an iron on each corner. Put it back in, and that should work. But I have thought about doing that, but I just think if I'm doing it for someone else, I'd much rather put new switches on. These switches will far outlive, even if they're not that great quality, and these are actually good quality switches from a reputable seller. They're going to last a lot longer. They're probably going to outlast the machine. So yeah, I just don't skimp on that. But it is an option if you want to do that. If it's your own machine, give them a clean, and yeah, it should be good. So all done. You might have noticed in the previous section that I hadn't actually removed the eject button, but I have now done that, and they're all good to go. So before I put this back together, I am going to just give the flaps a clean. Now, to remove these, it's actually really easy. There's a plastic section here with a little tab. Just pull like so. Just clean that bit off, and then you just slide these and they come out. Just slide them to the left, to the right even, and then put them out. So let's give those a clean. Let's give the tape a clean first. Just move all the dust out of here. It's actually pretty clean in there, which is good. So just beyond this lip, it's just making sure that all the dust is out. See some contamination in there, and just get Foam Cleanser 30 Servicol, my old favourite. Let that do its work. It's really good. So to put it back together, slightly to the right, there is a notch. Slide them across, and then with this fully out, pulling this way, just push back this bit of plastic here, which is the actuator to open the doors, and that will just lock them in place. So, and the bottom can be a little bit of a fiddle just because of the tape. Ooh. That's it, that's located. Magic. Just check they are. You know, if you actuate the little arm on the right here, the sort of slider assembly, they do actually close properly. And then get this way round, so the little pull out tab is there. And there we go, good to go. Smashing. You're probably never going to get them perfect with cleaning and whatever, just because they do get quite scratched, sort of fine scratches that the right cleaner, you can actually get them pretty tidy. So that's there. So putting this back, put it to the left. And see, I've not done that right, because you have to make sure this tape doesn't get fouled by the board. Let's try that again. There we go. So that's now correctly in place. Screws. So, next thing is the cable tie. So the cable tie goes like so, with this at the top. And let's just bend that. I need that somewhere up fairly high. Hopefully that should do the trick. Clip it off. Super. Let's just give that one final clean. Yeah, so another thing worth mentioning is this assembly here. See, I've actually put that on the wrong way. When I was cleaning this up with the vacuum cleaner, I actually sucked these into the vacuum cleaner, so retrieve those, but they go like so. So that angled bit there goes to the top right, and then this goes over here, and we're good to go. So let's get the front on, and I have cleaned the front. You can see it's still, you can still see the scratches on it, but it's actually really tidy. Everything works as it should. So you have nothing to worry about with switches or whatever. Let's get some screws in. And what I'll do is I'll just put this, the top screw and the side screws in. We'll just check everything works. Okay, so let's check. So I'm still not sure what's going on with this power button, but it is fine. I don't know, there's a bit of plastic broken off or something, but I can't see anything wrong with this. It's complete. Eject, rewind, play, fast forward, pause. Let's check the flap. Yeah, so it's flicking in nicely. Super. Okay, so I'll put the rest of it together and then we'll give it a test. All done. Not completely back together. I've left the top cover off, but everything else is done. Also done the base. There's confidence for you. So let's give it a try. So far so good. One thing I haven't tested actually is the time. It's a day, Sunday. It is probably about that. Yeah, they're fine, aren't they? Lovely. So, check these buttons. They're a little bit sticky just because of the cleaning. It's more to do with the actual plastics rather than the actual buttons themselves. So they all work. It's feeling good. Nice and bright. That's good. So, moment of truth. Let's try a tape. Still sounds a bit laboured, but we know it is a bit laboured. To be honest, it doesn't need use. So a bit of noise from the head bearings, but that will settle down because it does, just because it's been played with. So yeah. So actually, this is actually stuff I've recorded off YouTube. I don't know how good the sound will be, but let's try it.
After much lubrication, the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway suggested to the Midland Railway that they could use their line between new links. But kept on popping up with tunnels.
So it's going between two recordings. So that's looking really good.
We thought that would be worthy of us and have a quick peek whilst we do some other heavy issue stations.
So yeah, some of these probably won't be that great a recording, but there's a still. Gosh, that's good for a two head. Wow. Really? Am I going to... Yeah, there we go. That's what I'd expect. But still, that's not bad. So tracking, furthest left, furthest right. Wow, tracking is really good. Let's try wind forward. That's good. That's really good. I am really chuffed with that. What a really nice machine. So, the thing with this now, it needs to be run. Never be too disappointed when you've recommissioned a machine that it still doesn't feel quite right, because everything needs to bed in. The grease needs to run in. Everything just needs to sort of get going again. So run it for a good few hours, really. I mean, I like to run them for about 20 hours before I really make a decision whether it needs any more work done. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. I might have to look at these switches because, as you noticed, putting the tape in was a bit hesitant. That'll be down to these switches, so I might just... You can get away with just spraying a little bit of deoxit down the hole in between the leaves of the switches. But yeah, that's great. I'm really pleased with that. So yeah, fantastic. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned a few bits and pieces from this one. I know I've done a similar video going back, but it's just a bit of a recap really, and anything new that I've learned along the way. So yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and any comments on any content you'd like to see as well would be fantastic. So I'd like to make videos that you want to see, as well as making videos that I want to make. So see you in another video. Bye for now.